Dr. Jere here with this week's episode of Research That Matters. We're diving into the low back this month and really just kind of focusing on that particular area as we move through week by week here. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about movement. We're going to talk about the different types of movement and all of that. But movement really is one of the best ways to recover from back pain. The science has shown over and over that the least effective things to do is medication and rest, which used to be, what was recommended. But now we know better, right? So over the long run, movement is what is going to help your back problems the most. Now, there's different types of movement. There's segmental movement, which is how each little individual vertebrae moves. There's regional movement, so like your whole neck moving as a unit, or your whole low back. And then there's global movement, which is like the whole spine moving, like bending forward to tie your shoes, or when you go to exercise and you're doing a lot of different movements. That's kind of that whole global movement. So one of the things that tends to happen, though, and one of the reasons I have a job, is because what I specialize in is finding that segmental movement and trying to make sure each segment is moving the way that it's supposed to. Right? And so what tends to happen in the body is when we get an area that's not moving as well, so say this red area here isn't moving as well as it should, right? And so what tends to happen in those areas is the areas around it tend to move extra. And so last week we talked a little bit about sprains and strains that occur from overuse or wear and tear on an area. Well, the reason that we often overwork an area and we get these injuries is not because this area isn't working. In fact, it's usually working so much and moving so much that we end up injuring it. It's usually the segments around it, like these red ones, where we're not getting any movement into it, right? And so as we bend forward one time to tie our shoe or something like that, we talked about, hey doc, I didn't really do anything, but then my back started hurting. Well, it's because a lot of times, like I said, we have areas that aren't moving connected to areas that try to move extra. So like if our neck, for instance, if we have a segment that's not moving real well, our brain and our body is going to figure out how to achieve what we want to accomplish, right? So if I want to look down, but I have an area that's not moving, I'm going to move those other areas a lot more, and that's that regional movement. And as we move, it drives so much neurology. This is one of the really cool things. Like our brain receives, it's estimated, around 8 trillion bits of information every second. Well, the cool thing is over half of that information that our brain is processing comes from the spine. That's why the spine is so important, and making sure that we're taking care of it and we're moving, and each segment is actually moving the way that it's supposed to. So that's why, as a chiropractor, my job, you can take these areas and you can stretch them, and you should. I'm going to highly recommend that you stretch to improve your flexibility, right? You can rub these areas with some creams or put some medication to it, but that's not going to get those areas moving. That's where the adjustment comes in, where we come in there and get that segment opened up and get it freed up to where it can start to move again, right? That's what we do with the adjustment. So anyway, movement, like I said, it really is so darn important, and I keep trying to drive that point home, to exercise, to stretch. I know when you feel pain in an acute situation, sometimes rest is an okay thing for a short period, for a day maybe, or 2 days at the most. But then after that, we really just need to get things moving. And if you're having trouble getting over an injury, or you keep re-injuring it, like I said, a lot of times it's because one of those areas isn't moving the way that it's supposed to, and then we end up injuring these areas around it. And then as the body heals, the bad thing is that area starts to fuse, right? We get scar tissue, we get adhesions, and then before long, the next vertebrae is the one that's moving too much, and then it's the next one that's moving too much. As we keep losing global movement, and we're exacerbating these intersegmental movements in other areas, that's a lot of times why we keep having re-injuries, right? And they start to accumulate over time, which is one of the reasons the longer that a problem has been going on with somebody, they say, I had this little tweak, but I always recover within a couple of days. Well, a lot of times they're just building more and more scar tissue and more adhesions, and they're losing motion and not even aware of it, because the lack of movement doesn't really hurt. It's only that we notice we can't bend down to tie our shoes as well, or whatever. So anyway, like I said, if you've been struggling with back problems, sometimes getting an adjustment, seeing a chiropractor is really one of the best things you can do. I hope you got something from this episode. So tune in next week as we dive further into the low back, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks. Stay healthy, stay well.